This podcast is part of the Michigan Sports and Entertainment Podcast Network. Go to michigansportsandentertainment.com for more great podcasts.
Look out, Larkin's wide open. There's the pass. He's in the clear. Scores! Dylan Larkin, and the Red Wings win it. Zadina near side. Aronik. Zadina wants it. He's got it. He shoots. He scores! Dylan Zadina, his first National Hockey League goal.
Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode 2 of the return of the Hockeytown Rundown podcast. I am one of your hosts, Chase Sussex. I am joined by Jay Croft. How you doing, Jay?
Good. How was your week? Or actually the last 2 weeks. It's been a couple weeks since we did this, right?
Yeah, it's been a couple weeks since we've done this, but we're ready to pick it back up and kind of talk about some of the things that have been going on with the Red Wings. We're ready to jump right in. So one of the things I kind of want to touch about over these last 2 weeks is just kind of run through some of the performances that we've seen out of the Red Wings in the past couple of weeks. The Red Wings recently just sent down Filip Zadina to Grand Rapids after his 9-game stint. But we saw a little bit of him, in one of his games. He scored his first goal against Colorado since we've last talked in the podcast, and that was a pretty exciting moment for him. I think he also recorded an assist in a couple games ago as well. We've kind of seen that in the last couple weeks. We've seen a couple of pretty big wins. We saw a nice win over the Rangers a couple nights ago, and the most recent win we just saw was against the Islanders. But there were also some bad losses, like the one to Tampa just a few days back. So what do you kind of think of some of the recent performance going on with the Wings?
Well, going back to the Zadina, that was a hell of a goal, right? I mean, yeah,
that was a beautiful goal. I mean, up really nicely. You even called it on the last episode of the podcast, saying that Vanek would set him up. Getting Zadina out there with Vanek would result in his first goal, and who else to be the assist on Zadina's first goal than Vanek?
Yeah. I mean, Vanek's got that kind of skill set where he's actually a much better playmaker than people give him credit for. Unfortunately, he is 35 and he's looked every bit of it in the past week or so. I mean, there was actually one play. I think it was the Tampa game. I could be wrong though, but I'm pretty sure it was the Tampa game where Zadina made this play in front of the Tampa net and made a real creative play and just fed it right to Vanek and put it on his stick, and Vanek completely flubbed it. And that was basically, I would say, as close to an open net type of situation as you could have had. So it's very promising to see Zadina doing what he's doing right now, or in the 9 games that he was up here. He actually has made some real creative plays. He's skates great. What I love about the game that I've seen from him so far, though, Chase, is he's playing both sides of the rink. I mean, he had some takeaways. He's laid some hits. He's never going to be like a big time hitter, but you can tell that he's not a one-dimensional player. And that's been the promising thing, is you see that, he needs to play with skilled players. So I'm a little bit, I don't want to get too wrapped up into how many goals he scores for Grand Rapids in the next couple months as they go on their playoff run. I think part of it's going to depend on, who they're playing him with. Obviously he's going to get a lot of power play time. But with the Wings, they're putting him with Nielsen and Vanek, and I thought that would be a good line for him. But it probably would have been a good line for him like 10 years ago because Nielsen, honestly, I mean, he's a cool guy. I think he has a lot of skills, and he is a two-way center. But both him and Vanek, honestly, I mean, they really didn't give him a lot to work with. I really would have loved to have seen him have a few more shifts per game with Larkin, but Larkin went down with injury. So that really wasn't possible. So I think he did what he needed to do. He came up here, he played really well. He got a lot of praise from Blashill, which kind of surprised me because Blashill is usually really hesitant to say much of anything really good about the rookies. So he had a lot of good things to say about him. One of the things that he said that he's been dangerous every game, and every game he got more dangerous, which I would say is accurate. And to see him go through, was it like 2 or 3 Tampa players, the one game that they played? I forget which game it was, because they played him twice recently, where he basically like went in, like basically split like 3 different Tampa players and got a shot on net. So you can see it. When he gets here and he starts getting his groove and they put him with some good players, I think he's going to be really good for us. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, kind of get him on that right line. I mean, he definitely hasn't benefited from some of the lines he's been on. I know he played a little bit with Abdelkader and like you said, with Vanek and Nielsen, and it just wasn't really setting him up for success. Like obviously Vanek had the 1 assist on his first goal, and that was pretty much all we saw with him in terms of goal scoring. I think he had 1 other assist. I think it was on a Vanek goal, if I'm not mistaken, but. He definitely brings something. I wouldn't really look too much into the fact that he hasn't been a big scorer. I just think it's the production line that he's on. Like you said, seeing that Larkin got hurt and he suffered a little bit of a scare against the Islanders. He hit his head against the boards a little bit late in that game. Coming back from that neck strain is not a really good look, for them, especially after, he missed like 5 games, I think, with that neck strain.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, Larkin, he just plays that specific role, kind of that leadership role. Cause I mean, the Red Wings look completely dead and lost without Larkin. I mean, Anthony Ciu has stepped up in Larkin's absence, but I mean, the Wings have just looked so, kind of just one-sided without Larkin on the ice.
Well, and part of it too is like, and that's the one thing I liked about Zadina when I saw him is even when he didn't have the puck, he was noticeable to me. First couple of games, not so much. He was kind of waiting for someone to get him the puck, and then he kind of was able to make his own plays and do something after, he got the nerves out. But, Double A, though, when he's got the puck, oh my gosh, it's exciting, right? But I still don't really see him being the 2-way center, like the guy that's going to, be able to, basically, go into your defensive zone and strip the puck from somebody and take it down the other way. Like he's more the kind of guy where it's like, okay, hey, I'm going to kind of hang out over here or move around a little bit and hopefully my defenseman can get me the puck. I mean, when you're a center, you have to dictate play more. You have to, you are the guy that's got to go back there and help the defense out. And Larkin does that, right? He's learned to do that and he keeps getting better at it. Double A is not quite there yet. And so when he doesn't have the puck, it's kind of like he's waiting for someone to get it to him, where he's going to have to learn if he's going to keep playing center, if they're going to trust him to take on that role. He's going to have to, to get that part of his game going, because otherwise I don't really see him as a center. I still see him as a goal scoring winger, really, with speed, crazy speed.
Yeah, he's got really good speed, but again, that's just really the only thing to his game. He's just a high scoring winger that has his speed. It's basically a Darren Helm. I mean,
with finish though.
Yeah, finish exactly, because Darren Helm can't finish for his life, but.
But man, he sure did against Tampa, right? I mean,
he did. He had that one really nice goal against Tampa in the first game against Tampa. Right? Yeah, it was a 3-2 loss to Tampa the first game.
I think it was. Wasn't it part of the game where they
No, yeah, it was the second game. You're right.
Yeah, where they came out with the 2-0 lead or something.
Yeah, they were up 3-0 because I remember Helm scored the second and then Abdelkader scored.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Blashill's putting them on the first line after that.
Oh my goodness! I mean, That was Abdelkader's his first goal in like 41 games.
Yeah, man, it's a contract that just is never going to go away.
Oh my goodness! And now I'm hearing he's out for the rest of the season with whatever injury he's got. He suffered, I think, during that game, if I'm not mistaken, towards the end. It sounds like he's kind of done after. At least that's what I heard whispers about that. I haven't really heard anything confirmed about it. I don't think he did. I'm not sure if he played against the Islanders or not. But
I don't think he did. I think he sat out and Larkin came in. So. Yeah, I mean, I never wish for somebody to get injured, but I mean, you know, I'm not going to exactly, you know, worry too much about what the Wings are going to look like without Justin Abdelkader right now. So,
yeah. But yeah, I mean, you know, we saw a little bit from some of the veterans in these last couple of games, and it's definitely it's tough, especially kind of going forward. You know, we're stuck with a lot of these guys. I think the only guy we were talking about earlier was Vanek is the only guy kind of we're losing in the offseason in terms of forwards. So we still have a couple of years left on a couple of these guys. And unfortunately, even with the possibilities of a few, you know, some new faces, like we'll probably see Zadina on the main roster next year, and Veleno has a shot, and Svech has a chance to come back.
Not according to Holland, he doesn't. Yeah. According to Holland, he's going to be, you know, on the bus to Grand Rapids for another 2 to 3 years, buddy. So yeah. Don't be buying your Veleno jerseys just yet. Yeah. That just infuriates me because I get trying to temper enthusiasm for a kid like that who's putting up monster numbers in the queue right now.
30+ points already in the queue.
Yeah, he's tearing it up, dude. But I mean, look, the kid started in the queue a year before he was supposed to. He got that God, well, I forget what they call it, but the status that they gave him basically let him start, you know, when he was a year younger than normal. Normally, you know, you'd let somebody in that league. But he really found, you know, his footing, you know, in training camp. Even before that, the end of last season when he got traded to Drummondville, you could see he was really off to the races. And then since then, he's been on fire. So the kid's not slowed down. You know, he looks like he's going to be a damn good player for us. But, you know, he is in the minors, and I have no problem with them putting him in Grand Rapids if that's where he belongs. But, you know, 2 or 3 years away. I mean, at this rate, this rebuild is going to be like a 10-year rebuild. And that's something I know you and I are going to talk about a little bit as we get closer to the end. We start talking about prospects a little bit. But when I look at a 6-1 loss against Florida, and people are talking online about, well, you can't put effort, you know, you can't blame Blashill for effort, you know, that's bull. I mean,
exactly.
You know, the coach can't control you scoring a goal on a breakaway. But, dude, I mean, the guy controls the game plan. He controls who he's putting out there. And, you know, there's been too many of these games. I mean, 8-1 against Montreal, 6-1 against Florida. I'm not going to worry about blowing the lead to Tampa because basically Tampa woke up from the nap after the first period.
Yeah, exactly. So,
the Wings were busting their ass in that game, and they deserve to have the lead. But frankly, Tampa basically woke up, and, you know, whether they had their coffee after that, you know, Kucherov, you know, decided, all right, dude, enough of this. This is ridiculous. We're not losing to this team. And they came out and kicked their ass. And that's basically what, you know, you kind of expect is going to happen against.
Yeah, exactly. You're expecting that with the caliber of the team that you're seeing in Tampa Bay. I mean, you know,
6-1 against Florida.
Yeah, I mean, Florida is not one of those teams where you're like, oh, that's a Tampa Bay team. I mean, that's that's like if the Red Wings are ahead of Florida for the longest time in their division, and it's just like in the Atlantic, you know, Florida's been one of those bottom tier teams in the Atlantic division, and I don't know where they necessarily stand now, but you know, it was definitely not. It's one of those things where it's not like losing to Montreal or it's not like losing to Tampa. You're losing to Florida. I mean, like,
and a Florida team that has traded away, you know, some players. I mean, it's not like this is the same Florida from the beginning of the season. I mean, they sold off some pieces as well. And you know, I think the reason that they beat us 6-1, honestly, is because they got Riley Shan. he was one of those goals, I think. I don't know, man. I mean, it's just, look, it's a rebuild. I get it. But I mean, you can't absolve Blashill for I mean, how many games have they gotten whooped this year where, you know, they've come out and said this is unacceptable. You know, we can't play with this lack of effort. You know, like it'd be one thing if it was just that game against Montreal earlier in the year when they got embarrassed and that was it. But, you know, they keep saying, oh, but they keep coming out and playing so hard, you know, and it's not a lack of effort, it's execution. I'm like, well, I've seen enough games this year before and after the trade deadline to suggest that these players don't, you know, they don't put in the effort every game. You know, that's a lie, you know, and the coach has equal part in that. It's not all Blashill's fart. They play like a fart, but it's both of them, you know, and here we are talking at the end of the season about handing him an extension, you know. It's like, no, like, let's put the brakes on that. You know, let's wait. Let's kind of figure out, you know, hey, is this really the best option for this team? And I don't think it is. I don't think he's the right coach for this team. And, you know, if they're going to extend him for 1 year because that's how many years Holland has left on his deal, whatever. I mean, but if they're going to give him another 2 or 3 years, kill me now, man. Like, seriously, this rebuild is going to take forever if they don't get more creative and they don't find a way to get some better players in here other than taking the next, you know, 2 years to hopefully draft the defenseman of the future that they need to help get this thing where it's got to go, and some more elite forwards. That's really what I have to say on it. I mean, to get off the soapbox, you know, really, I don't think Blashill is the right answer. And I think we all know by now that Ken Holland is right now doing the paint by numbers rebuilding thing. He's basically doing what every GM should do when your team needs to rebuild: draft and develop and hope for the best. I mean, when you get your players, you hope, when you get your draft position, you hope, you know, for the best player available is going to be there, and you take that player and you develop. But right now, that's kind of where we are. You know, there's no creativity going on right now.
Yeah, exactly. We were talking about that earlier, just the kind of vanilla we've come to expect from Holland and company, and just the fact that we've yet to see or, you know, be able to trust Holland to make any of these kind of moves to push the rebuild forward. Because when he comes out and says things like guys like Veleno are 2-3 years away from cracking the main roster, I mean, it really just kind of puts a damper on, you know, the hopes of a lot of the, you know, because your attendance is already down, and, you know, and there's just not a lot of faith in the team already in terms of at this point in the rebuild. And when you're not really giving a lot of optimism in terms of what you're doing with the team going forward, it's definitely disappointing to hear that as a fan from that aspect. Is, you know, it just how slow the rebuild could probably go. If anything, I want to hear, you know, I get the whole trying to quell all the excitement over, you know, around a kid like Veleno, and, you know, he's probably seeing things that we aren't, but it's one of those things where, you know, you want to create some of that excitement, especially as of right now. I mean, when you're at a point in your franchise where it's probably the quietest in terms of fan interaction, and, you know, there's still so many loyal fans out there who, you know, who go in and support the team in and out every night, but it's definitely tough. It's a bleak outlook, especially when you're looking at things going forward, and you're looking at games and they're getting blown out to 6-1 to like teams like Tampa or not Tampa, like Florida. And it's tough. I mean, it's tough hockey to watch. It's tough to stick with. And, you know, stuff like that, kind of those small little things, you know, kind of to create some more excitement and get a little bit rid of that, you know, vanilla type, you know, GM style. You know, you just want to, I feel like that would just be better for everybody, you know, give a more positive outlook on guys like Veleno, who, you know, we've all seen has potential to play at an NHL level, possibly even next year. You know, to shoot that down and kind of say he's still a couple years, even possibly 3 years away from that is it's definitely disappointing to hear, I guess, as a fan, in terms of, someone who's looking for a fast rebuild, because obviously the real rebuilding part is not fun, especially with pretty much the whole city of Detroit seems like it's rebuilding. It's a little bit unfortunate. You want to see some progression there, and you're really not seeing anything.
Well, he talks out both sides of his mouth, man. And that's the thing that kills me is, on one side of it, he's saying, oh, well, he's probably 2-3 years away, but yet we're supposed to be contending for a playoff spot next year. And we're rebuilding. Right?
Yeah.
So what is it? Like I get it. Like, I get it. You're not going to come out and say, well, we think we're going to be at the bottom for at least another 2 years, right? Like, you can't, if you do that, the whole team basically says, well, then what the hell are we doing, right?
Exactly.
I get it. But at the same time, fans aren't stupid. Like, and I get they can't expect fans to, the fair-weathered fans to pay tickets, the high ticket prices that they charge, and $40 parking, whatever the hell it is down there, for a team that's going to mail it in. So, and I get it. Like, I don't want them to mail it in either. But at the same time, dude, this isn't 1997. This isn't 2008. Like, there are players in this league that are pushing for spots and making an impact at 21 to 24 years old right now. Just take a look. I mean, there's plenty of them around. By the time he's saying Veleno might be ready, Mantha and Athanasiou are going to be like 26, 27 years old. At that point, you're pretty much paying big money for these guys now. So what are we going to do? Like, while we wait for guys like Veleno and Berggren or whoever else they're kind of hoping will be ready in the next 3 years, you're going to have, some of the guys that are already on this team that are supposed to be contributing at a high level, pushing for big contracts, that have not played with anybody that's able to get them the puck to make them worth the money that they should be getting paid. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing, is like, they've got to accelerate this. Not saying that they need to go out and sign some big free agents, but obviously if they can somehow drug, Carlson and get him to convince him to come here, or something like that, or another forward that's out there. I don't know what forwards are available right now on the UFA market, but if they find somebody that truly is going to make other players better, not just be a Vanek or, honestly, I think one of the possible mistakes someone's going to make this year is overpaying a guy like Anders Lee. If they can find somebody that's truly going to make other players on their line better, then fine. Do that. Make that move. Or, God forbid, make a trade for another player, right? Not just a draft pick, actually a player that's established, be willing to give something up on your team that is going to bring back a player that's going to make other players better. Maybe try doing that, Ken. I don't know. But until they do something like that, this rebuild's going to take a while, because, he didn't screw this up overnight. I mean, making trades where you're giving up a first-round pick that could be your number one goalie right now in Vasilevsky for another crack at Kyle Quincy. Those are the kind of moves that put them in this place to begin with. So it's going to take at this rate, it is going to take a while to get out of this if Ken Holland is the guy making all the decisions. And right now he is, and until they can get Yzerman in here and hopefully he's willing to come back, it's gonna be a while, man. It's rough to watch these games because I don't see it getting that much better anytime soon.
Yeah, it's definitely a bleak outlook, and like I said earlier, it's one of those things where it's tough. Like, again, because you're on one end you're trying not to excite the fans by saying, oh, we got a bright. What am I trying to say? Like, you're trying to not overexcite or do anything and hype up some of these players that are coming up, but at the same time, like you said earlier, Holland's being like, oh, we'll be a playoff contender next year. And, to kind of not try to disappoint the players, but then the fans are like, well, the fans obviously aren't thinking that. We're looking at what we're seeing on the ice every night, and we're like, is this team a playoff contender next year? I mean, I just obviously don't think so.
This is a lottery team for definitely for next year and possibly the year after that. Unless Zadina comes in and has a line mate that actually can get him the puck, that can keep up with him from both a speed and hockey IQ standpoint, okay? And they can do something with that defense. And Jimmy Howard, and Bernier, kind of defy the odds, and their age isn't a factor because Jimmy Howard is 35 now. I think Bernier is younger, but I mean, Bernier isn't exactly, the best number one goalie that we've had.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's not. What I'm saying is there's a lot of ifs here, right? And there's just not enough elite talent in this organization. And, hopefully they hit on these draft picks, man, because I'll tell you what, if they don't, it's going to be a long time before this team is contending again. And part of that's just because, dude, like I said, it's like a paint by numbers approach to rebuilding. You have to do every GM should be doing the things that Holland's doing right now. Getting rid of he made one trade in the last couple of years that I was kind of surprised about, which was the Tatar deal. He signed him to, the $5.5 million or whatever he signed him to, and then he traded him, which is totally not his MO to do that. And he's even said that, like, we're not, we're not in the business basically of signing a guy to a long-term deal and then trading him. That's not the Wings way to do things. So I'm surprised he did that. But other than that, really haven't made any big moves. And I'm not talking about overspending for a guy in free agency. I'm talking about making some trades. I'm talking about, having the scouting staff that's like, look, this team's not utilizing this guy the way they could. And, we know that if we can get him into our system and give him the minutes he needs, he's going to be able to do something for us. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that's the reason why people want Yzerman in here, is because he did that, and he didn't do it he didn't take 3 years to do it. He did it right away. So I don't know, Chase. I mean, I don't want to be doom and gloom because I'm usually an optimist, but right now, this thing is going to take forever. So hopefully, something happens here during the summer, that'll accelerate things. But otherwise, I mean, a lot of these contracts that we're dealing with right now don't go away for another 2 years. I mean, it's the cupboards are going to be emptied out quite a bit after the next season. This season, though, we're not going to see a lot. I don't think you're going to see a lot of changes this year. I think if they do it the way they've been doing it, it's not going to be until that 2019-2020 season is over with where you're going to see things really change, because honestly, it's going to be, most of that change is going to be on the defensive side of the game. It's going to be Daly, Erickson, by then Cronwall's gone, you're going to have some major facelifting to do on that defense.
Exactly. And you were talking a little bit about, some of the moves that the Red Wings have made. So I kind of wanted to transition a little bit into a couple of the free agent signings that we've seen over the last couple or the last week that we've seen by the Red Wings. So there were two signings that the Red Wings made in free agency. That was Ryan Kuffner out of Princeton, and then Taro Hirose out of Michigan State. So I kind of wanted to touch on that and kind of see what your thoughts were in terms of their role kind of going forward in the team. We've already seen a little bit of Ryan Kuffner so far. He played a couple minutes against the Islanders in the past game against the Islanders, and hopefully we're going to see Hirose in the next game against the Rangers on Tuesday. So these are some impressive kids coming out of the NCAA. I mean, they obviously went undrafted for a reason, but this Kuffner kid, he's 22. They just signed him to a 2-year entry-level contract. he is the all-time leading scorer at Princeton, and he tied the NCAA. He tied the NCAA lead for points per game with actually with Taro Hirose. They were both tied with points per game with 1.42 points per game, and he ranked 4th in the country with 22 goals. He was a kid who has been kind of slowly improving every year in the NCAA, and with Princeton, we saw a little bit of him. He said it was kind of exciting to get a crack at the main roster, and like I said, we'll kind of see these guys, crack the roster and get some minutes before the season ends. But this, I like this Ryan Kuffner kid, but I'm more intrigued with what Taro Hirose can do. They're both left wingers, so in terms of production, it'll probably be pretty much the same. But this Hirose kid, I've been following him since his early Michigan State days. Again, he's just another 22-year-old kid, but he spent 3 seasons at Michigan State, 116 points over that span, 33 goals, 83 assists, and that's through 106 games. In 2018, he led the nation in points, assists, multi-point games, and 3-point games, and then tied with Ryan Kuffner in points per game. And he's a candidate for the Big Ten Player of the Year this year. He's one of the 3 finalists. That decision comes up pretty soon. But this kid just, is one of those things where, you're not really sure if NCAA play will translate to the NHL level. But I think out of the 2, I'm definitely most excited to see Hirose kind of hit the ice. But it's definitely interesting kind of to see what these guys could serve kind of going forward. I know you had some thoughts on like where these guys could, possibly end up and, what their role would be going forward, next year, these next couple of years. Cause these are a lot of guys where people are like, can they crack an NHL roster? Are they able to stay on the main roster? Or are they more of like an NHL or an AHL kind of guy who just stays down and, isn't quite able to crack the main roster. So, I mean, I kind of wanted to hear some of your thoughts on that.
So when you're a rebuilding team, we just talked about, you got to get creative. You got to find ways to get, talent other than just at the top of the draft. So they're doing their due diligence, and if you listen to both of them talk, at least with Kuffner, it's opportunity, it's a rebuilding team. That's why you get a crack at the best or the highest point producing college free agents, because your team sucks and you need, you want an opportunity to play. So, they get 2 players that were at the top of the list, really. I mean, I forget who got the other guy. I know some people were talking about, they wish the Wings could have got the guy that Toronto got. I don't know enough about any of these guys to really say, oh my gosh, like this is a game changer, like as far as our prospect system goes. Kuffner, supposed to have a very high hockey IQ, which excites me. Because we're not just talking about a guy that can shoot the puck. We're talking about a guy that the kid's extremely smart. I mean, to play hockey at Princeton, you have to be basically getting all A's, and that's what he's doing. So extremely smart kid, probably is going to think the game really well. Does he have the tools to, to come up here and more than likely contribute as a 3rd line scorer? Time will tell. He played for a whole 7 minutes and 8 seconds yesterday. So, there's really, you can't glean much from that. We're going to see over the next 10 games, kind of how he looks. And if they get Hirose in here soon, it looks like he's going to play, you said Tuesday?
Yeah, Tuesday. It looks like he's been practicing with the team, and it looks like he's going to crack the roster on Tuesday. That's at least reports what I've seen. But
he's a playmaker.
Yeah, he's a playmaker for sure.
So,
and that's what you said. I mean, Kuffner is more of that hockey IQ kind of guy, and then Hirose is more of that playmaker. That guy's going to be able to set up big plays and get a lot of assists. Like I said, those 83 assists he's had through 3 seasons at Michigan State, definitely showing that. So he's had a really good career with them, and he'll be able to set up some of those plays. So it'll be interesting to see what they end up doing, with the kind of limited minutes that they're getting for the rest of the season. I doubt they make really too much of an impact, and I don't really know what their team, what their impact with the team will be going forward next year. Like we said, there's not, the Red Wings aren't really losing a lot of forwards, so it's not really a whole lot of space to kind of throw these guys into the roster right away. It's a possibility these guys can kind of crack like fourth line or, something along those lines, but
they have enough of those guys.
Yeah, exactly.
And the thing is, like, again, they're rebuilding. They have to find a couple guys out there that just surprise everyone. And that, I mean, if you look at the recent college free agents that went through all 4 years or 3-4 years of school and were available, the track record is not that great. We hit on DeKaiser, realistically, he's, a number 4, number 5 defenseman on a really good team. Okay. But he's our number 1 defenseman probably right now without Mike Green. Without Mike Green in. Okay. So yeah, we've got a full-time roster player out of that situation. But if you look at guys like Jimmy Vesey from the Rangers, he's yet to score more than 40 points in a year. And he was like the talk of the town when he was available a few years ago. Mm-hmm. This year he's got 34 points, and for his career, he's a minus 32. Okay. So I'm going to pump the brakes on, like, the Wings broadcast, like Mickey Redmond and, all them about, oh my gosh, they got the highest score, Darren Maltby scored 50 goals in juniors. How many times did we hear about that? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So, look, until we see what these kids are going to do at the NHL level, and if they actually make anybody better, I'm actually more intrigued by Hirose. He's supposed to have some elite hockey IQ as well. I'm more interested right now in finding guys that are going to make other guys better that aren't dependent on someone else getting them the puck, because honestly, we have enough of those guys.
Yeah, exactly.
We could always use scoring, but we need to find players that make their line mates better. And if Hirose's a guy that can do that, then I'm excited about that, but I mean, just look at who some of these other guys that have been taken. I mean, David Pope. We drafted David Pope. He went through all 4 years of college. Last year, he put up some really big numbers in college. 28 games for Grand Rapids. He's got 3 points. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't watched Spencer Fu from Calgary play. He's put up 20 goals in the AHL, and now he's played a little bit for Calgary. I haven't watched, David Pope playing Grand Rapids, so I don't know what's going on down there. But the point is that more often than not, there's a reason these kids go through 4 years of college
without getting drafted. And that's what I said before, there's a reason why these guys went undrafted, and, we'll maybe see a little bit of that. But, like I said, there's definitely a reason as to why these guys aren't getting picked up.
See what happens, I mean, maybe we see something out of one of those guys that's like, damn, how did he could just be a late bloomer, but, I'm not going to really put any stock into it until, there's more to see. And maybe what happens is, I don't know how the rules work with this. I know based on age, you can only give them a 1, 2, or 3 entry-level deal. And I think because both of these guys were 23 or 22 or something like that.
Yeah, both of them are 22.
They both have 2-year deals, right?
Yeah, they both got signed 2-year deals.
So are they burning off their first year right now? I think so.
I think so, yeah, because if they play – because, Hirose hasn't played 10 games, but, I mean, obviously you've already seen Kuffner play 1 game. They've got 10 games. So if they both start for the final 10 games of the season, then they burn that first year of the entry-level contract, yeah.
And they're probably going to send them down to Grand Rapids for the playoffs.
Yeah, so
I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, look, nothing bad can come of it, right? Mm-hmm. So it's better than them not getting the 2 highest, or 2 of the highest scoring college players available, but it doesn't really move the needle for me, but at the same time, maybe one of them sticks and makes things a little bit more interesting to watch next year. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it'll definitely be interesting to see because, like I said, we haven't seen Hiroshi yet. We saw only a tiny bit of Kufner. So, I'm definitely, we're definitely willing to give these guys some time. Obviously, we're not going to see a whole bunch of them, and I'm sure we won't see any crazy scoring. But, I mean, let's say, Hiroshi comes in his first, in these last 10 games and scores like 3 goals or whatever, I mean, like maybe he's – maybe there's a couple of guys. Maybe we're kind of finding a diamond in the rough over here. But I mean, yeah, like you said, it's definitely smart to be, caution, kind of cautiously optimistic about some of these guys because, like I said, like we've talked about multiple times already, these guys are undrafted for a reason. They went through all 4 years of college. As impressive as they've been in the NCAA, NCAA success does not translate to NHL success. So it's definitely interesting to see, what they'll kind of go and what they'll kind of do going forward. But I'm definitely excited to see him play. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to seeing Hiroshi play. Kufner looked pretty good in the limited minutes that he got. So, if we can see something similar in Hiroshi, then that would definitely be good for me, at least, to kind of see what we're getting out of him, especially hopefully Tuesday in New York. So
now I know, just taking even just a couple minutes to research this, Chase, why some people were saying that they wish the Wings got the guy that Toronto got.
Okay.
So Joe Duszak, I'm not sure if that's how you say his name.
Yeah, I haven't really looked into him too much, but like, what is it? I mean,
so 21-year-old defenseman finished third in the scoring among all NCAA skaters this season. Dubas made a smart, low-risk move. So he's 5'10", and apparently he's one of those kids that plays with pace and skilled over just size and toughness. So, and what do the Wings need again? I forget.
Well, the Wings are
they need defense, right?
Yeah, they need defense. Yeah, they're big on defense, and then obviously center. The Red Wings ended up picking up 2 left wingers, which
right.
I honestly I wouldn't really say there's a position that I wouldn't say like I would say the Red Wings the Red Wings are
they
solid
need everything.
At this position. They need everything. They need about every position. So I think any position would have been pretty good to grab. But defenseman would definitely be big. Would have been big. But I don't really know if there was any good free agent defenseman kind of coming out of college.
Well, he seems to be the one. So you would have liked to have seen. I mean, I don't know, man. Look, I'm not going to play armchair scout here. I don't know what I've never seen this kid play. I mean, for me to sit here and say, oh, they should have got him instead. I don't know. I mean, the guy could, completely flop, I mean, but I do know that, if you're trying to rebuild the defense, getting more players that have the skill set that you need that you don't have is a good thing. So we'll see, man. I mean, like I said, I don't want to beat a dead horse. I think it's great that they've found a couple players that look like they're supposed to be, that they're supposed to be pretty good players. But I mean, the track record isn't good for 4-year college free agents. We'll have to just let time really decide really what these kids are going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and we, I kind of want to, we can kind of transition into what we're going to talk about next. But, like I said, we've kind of talked about these last 10 games for the Wings, and we'll see, Hiroshi and Kufner a little bit more in these last 10 games. But what kind of implications these last 10 games going to have for the Red Wings? We saw them pick up a win over the Islanders just yesterday, and that pushed them into third place or third to last in the NHL. I think that pushes Los Angeles behind them. And a lot of people are, why would you root for the Red Wings to lose? But it's one of those things where, it definitely hurts the Red Wings draft stock. But I mean, obviously the Red Wings aren't going to play to lose. It's not necessarily what these guys are really doing. They're not playing to tank. They're not, that's just not really in their nature to try to lose games. Because that's just not what you do as, an NHL player. You don't play to lose just because your position, just because of their position you're in. Because I doubt any of the teammate, the kids in the team really care about, some newcomer who could come in and take their roster spot. they're really caring about winning games right now and just going in and, winning whatever they can, because those wins are definitely big confidence boosters. But other than confidence, I mean, do these last 10 games really mean anything else for the Red Wings? Like, is there any games they could sort of make a push for in these last 10 games where they're saying, oh, they definitely need this win here, or is it really beneficial for the Red Wings to try to, pick up a couple of wins in these last 10 games, or are you thinking more along the lines where it's like, yeah, they just need to kind of sit where they are, and they could probably lose the last 10 games if they wanted to?
I mean, honestly, the most important game on the schedule that's left is the game on the 29th against the Devils. I mean, and that's because they're kind of, we're doing this whole ping pong ball thing between us, New Jersey, and the Kings for the lottery. Honestly, that's really the only true implication it has. I don't think that we're going to find anything out about any of these guys other than the 2 college free agents that we don't already know. I mean, we saw Zadina. He can't come back. I mean, it wouldn't even really make that much sense to bring Cholowski back for any of this.
No, yeah.
I mean, as much as I'd like to see his progress, I'm probably more interested to watch the Griffins in the next month than I am the Red Wings. But I mean, it really is all about, for me, the draft lottery. And it's not so much about, getting the number 1 pick as the more spots we move down, the more possibility there is to move down further. So right now, we're number 3. So we can go as low as 6. Can't go any lower than 6. Now, before we won that game against the Islanders, the lowest we could go was 5th.
Yeah.
Now, Ottawa just won 2 games. So they would have pulled within 4. We would have been within 4 points of them. I don't think we're going to take over, or anybody's taken over that first spot, because they're pretty bad. But I mean, the whole thing is, the more games we win, and I don't think we're going to do a lot more winning in the next 10 games, but the more games we win, if you look at kind of who's in front of us or who's behind us, however you want to look at that, the 2 teams that we're really going back and forth with are the Kings and New Jersey, because those are the ones that, unless the Wings go on a winning streak, I don't think we have to worry too much about us getting past Anaheim or Vancouver. I mean, I think right now, just kind of looking at where the points stand, the Wings are at 72 games played. They got 60 points. New Jersey's 3 points ahead of us, and Anaheim's 7 points ahead of us.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's really, we're either looking at being probably 2nd, 3rd, or 4th.
Well, it's even a possibility. I mean, Ottawa's sitting at 56 now with their last couple wins. So
they would have been 2 points within us. Yeah, 2.
Yeah, so I mean, they're only 4. We're only 4 points behind. They're only 4 points behind us in terms of points. So I mean, if Ottawa really makes this kind of late push, and the Red Wings, I mean, because the Red Wings don't have an easy schedule by any means.
No,
I mean, they go to play. They go to play. They've got a 5-game road stint where they're playing. They've got the Rangers, and then they've got the Blues, who are making that big playoff push. They got Vegas, who's making that playoff push. We'll see, Nyquist and the Sharks come back on the 25th.
Returns.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of Nyquist, I mean, I want to touch on this a little bit, just not to change subjects very long, but that conditional pick that's coming with the Red Wings, I mean, with that 1 pick where it says if Nyquist re-signs with the Sharks, they'll, the Red Wings will get that kind of conditional 2nd, which is currently a 3rd. But I mean, he is really not looking like he's earning that extension. I mean,
well, I forget. Well, they don't have him playing with Thornton. They have him on the 3rd line, don't they?
Yeah, they've got him on the 3rd line. They've got him playing down, which is, I mean, it makes sense for his production. I mean, he's only got he's got 1 or 2 goals.
He just scored
so far
for them.
Yeah, that was his 2nd goal, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So far since the trade. So
it was a depth move. I don't think San Jose has any thought of signing Gus Nyquist to a 4 or 5 year deal at least 5 per, which is what he's going to get. I mean, he's putting up the best season he's had. So, and he's still under 30. Somebody is going to pay that guy. You know, someone's going to turn around and he's going to get the Golden Tate deal. You know, he's going to get overpaid, and, you know, and good for Gus. You know, I mean, he's a good guy. You know, I always liked him when he was here, but at this stage of where the Red Wings are at, it made no sense. And for San Jose, you know, they got other players that they have to re-sign. I don't see them dropping a bunch of coin on, a 30-year-old left winger that, you know, typically is going to get you 40 to 50 points a year. I just don't see it. You know, I mean, maybe that's something maybe Edmonton's going to do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, they're desperate for you know, scoring wingers. You know, but I mean, I just don't see that he's going to re-sign there. And I think the Wings' best chance of getting that conditional pick is honestly San Jose making it to the conference finals. And it's kind of open in the West, right?
Yeah, I mean, the West is pretty well. I mean, like we've seen earlier this season, you know, the Western Conference is incredibly wide open. If we look at it, give me a second to just kind of pull it up here. But we saw earlier in the season that the Western Conference was kind of a mess in terms of, you know, players and teams, you know, being kind of in, you know, some of these like sort of under the radar teams kind of being able to, you know, to have a chance at the wild card. You know, in the Western Conference, like I know the Coyotes for the longest time, I think they're still in wild card contention. If we look at it, it looks like the Jets, the Predators, and the Blues in the Central Division, and the Flames, the Sharks, and the Golden Knights will be playoff teams there. And then you'll have this. So then the Stars and the Coyotes currently too have the two wild card spots, which is, you know, the Coyotes aren't really a team that are a high caliber hockey team at all whatsoever.
Go Rick Tocchet though, right?
Yeah, I mean. That's a complete turnaround. I mean, the Coyotes were an absolute mess last year. You know, so to see them turn around and have a wild card spot next year, it's definitely pretty surprising in what we've seen from that kind of production there. Like I said, you know, the Red Wings will play the Blues coming up, and they play the Golden Knights. Both of them are in playoff contention right now, and they're like the Blues are only 2 points ahead of the Stars in terms of like that third playoff spot. The Stars still have that first wild card spot in the West. So I mean, some of these games that the Red Wings are going to be playing, I mean, these guys are going to be playing for serious, you know, playoff implications here, especially when they play a lot of these teams in the West. They've got the Sharks, they've got the Golden Knights, they've got the Blues. I mean, these guys are going to be, you know, hungry for a win when they come play in the Red Wings. And this game is, you know, these games are on the road for the Wings, and it's going to be tough for them to pick up some of these wins, which is only good.
Well, I mean, you know, the Vegas is, you know, 11 points behind San Jose. You know, Calgary and San Jose is obviously going to be pushing to get that number one spot. They're only 1 point behind my Flames, right? So that's my favorite non-Red Wings team, but they're 1 point behind them, and so they're going to be fighting for position. Vegas is pretty much not going anywhere. I mean, there's no way they're gonna make up that kind of ground in a week or in 10 games. But you know, they do have to obviously be wary of Dallas and Arizona because, you know, they're only 4 points ahead of Dallas and 5 ahead of Arizona. So, you know, they've got something definitely to fight for, and obviously, you know, St. Louis is kind of even more susceptible to being overtaken by one of those two wild card teams for the third spot because they're at 81 points. So definitely two teams in the West that they're going to have to be ready for, and they're on the road for both of those. Is that the case?
Yeah, so yeah, I'm pretty sure they're on the road for they've got this 5-game stint coming up. It's New York, St. Louis, Vegas, San Jose, and then Buffalo.
So the old bit
yeah.
we're going to hear is, how much Jimmy Howard loves to play in New York, right?
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
So Jimmy Howard's going to be in New York, and he's probably going to play a good game, and they might even win that game because New York is kind of a kind of in the same.
No, they're
boat,
pretty much they're pretty much out. I mean, they're second last in the Eastern Conference behind, or they're right in front of the Devils, who just got eliminated from playoff contention. So,
yeah, so they're
the Rangers are coming.
They're in trouble too. I mean, they're not doing anything, but I mean, Vegas is a hard place to play.
Yeah.
So that's not going to be an easy game. I don't really see us picking up a W there. Are any of these games on a back-to-back?
No. They play the Rangers on Tuesday, then they play the Blues on Thursday. Saturday is the Knights, then they play Monday against San Jose, and then they play all the way again on Thursday, which is the 28th against Buffalo. But then they play Buffalo. So the only back-to-back game they have is Buffalo. They're at Buffalo on the 28th, and then they go back home to play the Devils on the 29th.
Well, they're not winning that San Jose game because they don't win in San Jose.
No, they won't win in San Jose. So what? There's a possibility they win against the Rangers. They probably lose 3 straight against St. Louis, Vancouver. Or I keep saying Vancouver, Vegas, and San Jose, and then you got Buffalo and New Jersey. It's kind of iffy. Maybe go 1-1. I mean, I guess you cross your fingers for 0-2 there, but 1-1, wouldn't be the end of the world. I'd rather lose to the Devils than to Buffalo if we end up going 1-1. But like I said, it's kind of give or take there because again, both of those teams aren't really in playoff contention at all. So I doubt they really, it's definitely a possibility there. But I mean, you look at the Senators' schedule. I mean, they just beat the Maple Leafs 6-2 the other night, and they just they knocked off the Blues 2-0, which is ridiculous. I mean, the Senators have been playing really well over their last 2 games.
A lot of that is teams not taking them seriously.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Just like Tampa was looking at Detroit as like, oh, come on, They don't have Larkin, they don't have Green, they trade away Nyquist. Mm-hmm. They have Abdelkader on their team. Blashill's their coach. We should win this game. We've beaten them 15 times in a row or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. We're not losing this game. And they went in and they basically played the first period, in their sleeping bags, and then they woke up, and then we lost. So I think that's a lot of what's going on with Ottawa, because we know Ottawa is not nearly as good as, their most recent wins are. Are they as bad as they were right before it? I don't know. Look, they're gonna more than likely what's gonna happen is if just looking at the schedule, I'm gonna pull up. You said were you looking at Ottawa's schedule?
Yeah, I was looking at Ottawa's schedule. So Ottawa's got some interesting games coming up. So they've got the Canucks. What is this game? They're in Vancouver. So, but that was the thing. They beat the Blues and the Maple Leafs on the road, which is pretty crazy. And then they've got the Canucks in this last home game in this last road game before they go back home. But they play Vancouver. They're in Vancouver, and then they come home. They play the Flames, and then are they still away? No, they are still. Never mind. They're going in. They're still they're in Calgary for that game. They actually don't come home until they play the Sabres on the 26th. But they'll play the Canucks, the Flames, the Oilers, the Sabres, the Panthers, the Maple Leafs again, the Lightning, the Rangers, the Sabres again, and then the Blue Jackets to end the season on the 6th. So they've got some interesting games in there. Like I said, they got a couple games against the Sabres, which I think could be winnable. They got a game against the Panthers that could be a possibility, the Rangers. So I think if they throw a couple wins in there, the Red Wings actually have, if the Red Wings end up kind of losing out or come close to it, I mean, the Red Wings definitely have a shot at possibly grabbing that number 1 overall, which doesn't really hurt the Senators at all because obviously that pick's going to Colorado. So really the only thing that's hurting there is the Avalanche. But it's definitely interesting. I think, with the way the Canucks have been playing, they've had a good, showing on the road. And like you said, I think that a lot of that's the fact that they're not really, teams are really kind of underestimating, and that kind of makes sense for a 2-0 loss to the Blues or a 2-0 win over the Blues. But I mean, for the Senators to score 6 goals against the Maple Leafs, I mean, I don't know what the Maple Leafs are doing. I mean,
Shabbat get all of them.
Yeah, I mean, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean they've got some good young talent there. Obviously, I mean they've been stockpiling it now this past couple of years. But I mean they're they are what they are. The Kings are the team that kind of intrigues me the most because they've been basically the ones going back and forth with us. If New Jersey can keep winning some games here and there and keep 2 to 3 points ahead of us, then great. It's the Kings that I'm kind of watching because I think that's kind of honestly, I think that's where this is going to end up is the Wings either finishing second or third to last. And I think it's less likely that we overtake, Ottawa, but the Wings do have a game in hand. I think I'm not sure if it's over. I know they have a game in hand over. I'm trying to think. They've played more games. They've played more games than LA has so far.
Yeah.
So I mean, LA's got Winnipeg coming up, San Jose, and Anaheim.
Okay.
All at home this week.
Okay.
And then they play Calgary, the Oilers, and Vancouver, and then they play Chicago. And then
I mean, there's a couple.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah,
no, it's fine. Then they ended with Calgary again, the Coyotes, Anaheim, and Vegas. So you got what 1, 2, 3.
They got some winnable games in there. There's a few in there.
They got 3, 4, 5, 6 games that are against playoff teams.
Okay.
Or teams that are in the wild card fight, So, I mean, they're probably going to lose a lot of those games.
Yeah.
They have been. So, I mean, it's, it's so weird that we're like, counting games we might lose instead of games we might win. But I mean, that's kind of the nature of it right now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're definitely rooting against all these teams, and it was definitely different early in the season because I early in the season we were talking about it in previous episodes of the podcast, but we talked about the Red Wings went on a little bit of that role in the middle of the season, and I was telling Nick at the time, I was like, if you're I said we should be cautionally optimistic about everything because. As much as it's nice to see the Red Wings win, I mean, this is still a rebuilding hockey team. And I was definitely a little bit nervous about, some of those wins. And I was like, are we really, we were kind of picking up some of those that we probably shouldn't have earlier in the season, which is fine. I mean, I think that's great in terms of a team morale aspect. And obviously these guys, like I said earlier, aren't really playing to lose. But, I think some of those, kind of that mid-season push that the Red Wings made before, absolutely falling apart towards the end of the season, it definitely kind of derailed some of their thoughts that, they're still obviously in contention for that first overall pick. But I think it definitely kind of derailed some of the rebuild a little bit there because it definitely gave a false sense of hope a little bit, at least for me. Because, as much as I liked seeing them win and string together some games where they were playing really well, it's just tough in terms of what they were doing like all year in terms of their rebuild. So I don't know.
It's still, with the way that they redrew they changed the rules with the lottery. I mean, I think it's still tough because if the Wings finish worst overall, the whole problem here is that your odds of getting the number 1 pick is still less than 20%.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, last year or not last year, a couple years ago, Philly moved up like 11 spots, Carolina moved up like a ton of spots last year to grab Svechnikov, I mean, and it moves the Wings down. The Wings were supposed to pick 4th last year. I mean, it worked out because they still got the guy that everyone projected was supposed to go to 3 or 4 anyway. I mean, I have a hard time really people arguing against Tkachuk, going to Ottawa. I think they had their eyes on him the whole time, but I mean, look, we got the best case scenario really last year. This year, I don't know, man. I mean, I know we're going to get to the draft a little bit again today, but to me, the Wings need a Kako or a Hughes. I mean, that's really, if you're going to finish this far down, man, I mean, you want to get the best player you can possibly get. So, obviously the lower they go, the better the odds are, but it's still not great odds. I mean, this is still, really, I mean, if you miss the playoffs, you have a chance to get into the top. The way I just heard Brian Burke talking about this, and he says a lot of ridiculous things, but I did think it made sense what he said the other day on Sportsnet. He's talking about the lottery really should be, if you basically, if you miss the playoffs, you shouldn't be able to get into the top three, right? It should be reserved for let the teams at the worst three teams in the or the last, let's say 3 to 5. Those are the players that are in the lottery.
Yeah.
Everything else is based on where you finish, right? And that was the thing, and then the other thing he threw in there, and I don't know if I agree with this one, but he threw in, well, if you get the first pick as a result of the lottery, then you shouldn't be able to get the first pick for 3 years, or it should be 3 years before you get it again. And the same thing if you get the number 2 pick. So basically what they're saying is, well, too bad you shouldn't have taken Nail Yakupov, right?
Yeah. I mean, I see some benefits and some obviously not so great things about that, because, like I said, one number 1 overall draft pick is not going to change a team. Like, obviously you saw Connor McDavid. I mean, they took Connor McDavid, and I mean, as good as McDavid is, I mean, he's been spectacular. I mean, clearly one of the best players currently in the NHL. I mean, but let me look where the Oilers are currently. I mean, they're not really looking at, they're definitely not looking at any kind of playoff success, or even, they're not even close to being contenders. So the fact that, I don't really necessarily agree with the fact that, you kind of have to wait 3 years before getting the number 1. But I definitely don't think that some of the teams, if you look at some of the top 15 teams in the lottery before the lottery ends, you've got teams like Chicago and Minnesota, Montreal in here, to me, that's kind of tough. I mean, I get those guys only have smaller percentages to kind of get into the top 3. But it's pretty silly, especially when, I'm a guy from Carolina down here, but the fact that the Red Wings moved all the way down to 6, and then the Hurricanes moved up to 2, and ended up getting Evgeny's brother Andre in the draft at 2, and the Red Wings fell all the way down to 6. I mean, there was a lot, for me to, I was definitely bumming over that. I mean, there's a lot lost there. I mean, the Red Wings fall 4 spots. I mean, sure, they end up getting a guy like Zadina, which it ended up working out, like we said. But, they could have, there's a multitude of players they could have gone somewhere else. And I'm not going to complain about it because I'm a big Zadina fan. And, that's not really what we're going to talk about right now. But it's one of those things where, I definitely think there's some flaws in the way the lottery system goes, because Ottawa's the worst team. They have a 49.4% chance, according to Tankathon, to still stay in the top 3. But I mean, for that number 1 overall pick, I mean, they finished the worst. They only have an 18.5% chance at that number 1 overall pick. So just the way that the system works, it's kind of silly, because I mean, even that 1% chance that Montreal has sitting in 15th, I mean, they could still possibly move up to 1. With that 1% chance, even with the slim chance, it could still possibly happen. And we saw some of that last year. I think I want to say the Hurricanes were currently 11th. I think they sit where Chicago did this year in terms of lottery rankings. They jumped all the way up to number 2. So
odds are that Detroit is going to move down a couple spots.
Yeah.
And so the higher they are, the lower they can fall. And if they don't finish, better than second worst, then the lowest they can get down to is 5th.
Yeah.
But in their current place, third to last, they can go down to 6, which is the same spot that they finished last year.
Yeah. So
I mean, we'll see. I mean, look, man, it's a lottery, right? I don't know that agree with the way that they do it, but there's nothing you can do about it. So the best thing we can really hope for is that, you know, the young players don't stop putting in the effort. They keep playing their asses off, and the veterans keep doing their thing, and Blashill keeps doing his thing, and we finish worst overall.
Yeah.
But that probably won't happen. And
Yeah.
and whatever. I mean, there's good players in it, but this year it's very clear. It's Jack Hughes and Capo Caco and everyone else. And there's good players in every draft. I mean, you know, the one draft we were talking about that Philly moved up. I mean, they got Nolan Patrick, but, you know, sure looks like the steal of that draft is Elias Pettersson of Vancouver.
Yeah.
So I mean, he was drafted, what, 4th?
Yeah, I think 4th. So, you know, like I said, there's so many different ways it can go. I mean, I've run this. I wanted to start running into this. I want to transition. I've run this Tankathon sim a little bit more, and we're going to kind of run this together again and kind of go a little bit in depth in some of the players that the Red Wings could pick. But as much as I would hate to see the Red Wings fall to 6, I mean, as you know, because I just remember how frustrated I was last year after they fell to 6. But like I said, they ended up getting their guy, you know, last year, and maybe it could happen again this year. I just don't think if they fall to 6 again, they'd be that lucky. But you know, there's definitely some interesting things we could see. I'd like to see them stay in the top 3, but like I said, you know, there's definitely some possibility for the Wings to move down.
Do we want to run this right now then?
So if you want to run this, I'm going to run mine really quick, and then just see what.
3.
Okay.
So do you have it fired up? You have it ready to go?
Yeah, I've got it fired up.
All right. So 3, 2, 1. All right. Who's going first?
Oh boy. All right. So I guess I'll go over mine first. So my Tankathon has Vancouver jumping 5 spots, number 1. And then it has Buffalo moving up 6 spots to draft number 2.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Rasmus Dahlin and Capo Caco.
Yeah, I know. And then they have the Ottawa pick, which goes to Colorado. That's at 3. So they move down 2. Los Angeles moves down 2 to pick number 4, and then Red Wings pick at number 5 in mine. So
who they taken with 5? Does it show? Say
it. Let me see if I can try to find.
It's that mock draft one. There's the NHL home, and then there's the mock draft.
Yeah. So let me try this now. Okay, it says Bowen Byram on the mock draft. So, it had Jack Hughes going number 1, and then Kako obviously going number 2. Podkolzin to at 3 to Colorado.
I need to read up on him more. I really don't know anything about him.
Yeah, it's not. I've seen some things going around about Podkolzin. It's one of those things where he's a right winger. I mean, the Red Wings just drafted right winger. I just don't really think that's necessarily a need for them. If they end up being at 3, I don't know. I think I'd rather still see them fall somewhere, you know, going like a center instead, like a Cousins or a Kirby Dach kind of guy.
Podkolzin has been pretty consistent with all of the pundits basically saying that it's Hughes, Kako, Podkolzin, and then from there it's kind of it's a lot of different players.
Yeah, I've seen it's been kind of all over. But so I want to go in a little bit, I guess. Do you want to go over your mock before we kind of dive into some of these players here?
Well, I guess I'm gonna have to call my draft the pie in the sky draft because we got Hughes. So.
Oh really? Oh my goodness. Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah. So Jack Hughes 1 to the Red Wings, Capo Caco 2 to Anaheim, who moves up 3 spots. Not a big, not a big jump there.
Yeah.
New Jersey moves up 1 spot to get Vasily Podkolzin. Ottawa, actually it's Colorado. Takes Dylan Cousins, and LA takes Bowen Byram with the 5th spot. So that's the top 5 for mine.
Okay. So, and we wanted to kind of jump in. I mean, obviously we've already heard so much about Jack Hughes, and he would be in a fantastic fit for the Red Wings, definitely kind of solidify that center position that the Red Wings are going to look.
Great fit for anybody.
Yeah. Great fit for anybody, really. He comes in, could probably make instant impact right away. he looks just as good as his brother Hugh, Quinn. I mean, excuse me. And I kind of wish that Quinn was a Red Wing, but like I said, I'm still really happy with the Zadina pick. But me being a little bit of a Michigan, homer, I guess. I mean, there's part of me that kind of wishes that we had a Quinn Hughes instead. But like I said, I mean, it's 6 of one, half dozen the other. I've seen a lot of conversation what the Red Wings will kind of do if they end up falling. If they kind of fall into that 5 spot. I'm not necessarily sure if I'm sold on Bowen Byram. We talked about this earlier. I had some conversations with some of our other Red Wings beat writers on our site, and I've heard some frustration kind of with the way the Red Wings have gone in the draft as of recent. We had a little bit of a kind of back and forth about what the Red Wings should do, because this guy was kind of he liked a Bowen Byram type guy if the Red Wings were to fall, and he kind of discussed the possibility of the Red Wings trading down from if they get that top 2 pick. To possibly try to solidify that defense, because I know. Yeah. No, I know. Yeah, it's not. No, I know Jay is not very happy about that. That kind of possibility.
We kind of talked about that before. Like we were kind of talking earlier today. I get it. Like I understand why. It's not. Yeah. The reason why is like what we talked about before. I don't know his reasoning for it, but the argument I would make is, hey, we need defense. Ken Holland and I wouldn't say this current scouting team isn't really responsible for the whole Ouellette, Sproul, Kindle experiment. The whole generation of defensemen that didn't pan out that were supposed to. But they did draft Hronek, Cholowski, McIsaac. There's definitely some better defensemen on the way. But for sure. But Holland has not shown any ability to do anything creative to get somebody in here that is already ready to step into the lineup and play, that is a high-end defenseman. And they're very hard to get. But, when you see Steve Yzerman, moving guys like Drouin to get Sergachev, and it's kind of like, we have some guys now that can be moved. If it looks like, Zadina is as good as he's supposed to be, and Berggren and Veleno really pan out, does it make an Anthony Mantha or a AA expendable and make it so that, with the pick that, we have this year, if you get a forward, does it make it so that you could move one of those more ready to jump into any lineup and contribute, 25 to 35 goals a year, and they're not making a ton of money yet. Does that get you a defenseman that could step in and be our best defenseman? Maybe. You're probably going to have to throw in a draft pick with that too, Yeah. But I guess my point is that Holland's not shown any willingness or ability to take an important piece of the roster and move it for somebody that you need more, right, on defense. And so if your feeling is that I don't see it coming in any other way, and I don't see them getting a guy like Carlson in here, then, yeah, you're probably thinking maybe we do have to reach. Maybe we do have to move down and get the best defenseman available. The problem is the year to do that was last year, when you had Evan Bouchard and, it looks like McIsaac's actually doing better than Dobson is, Noah Dobson, but Quinn Hughes and Boakfist. I mean, you had so many opportunities to get a high-end defenseman in the system last year. I mean, I would have rather they seen them, trade a piece to move back into the top 12 or something and grab another one of those defensemen. And, but the point is that they didn't do that, and it looks like Bowen Byram is the best of what's available. But from what I'm seeing, his stock is elevated because there's a premium on defense and there's not many high-end defensemen available in this draft. So that's really what it is. Is it a reach if you get him at 5? I don't know. But I mean, there's other guys out there that if they didn't get Kakko or Hughes at center, that it almost looks like what the defense was last year in the draft, the centers are this year. I mean, you've got Hughes, you've got Cousins, you've got Peyton Krebs, you've got Kirby Doc. I'm hearing a lot of good things about Trevor Zegras right now. And he actually isn't as good of a skater as Hughes, but his skill set is comparable. And when Hughes was out of the lineup in the last under 18 tournament, he thrived. He played really well. Alex Turcotte gets, a lot of notoriety now too. So there's a lot of opportunities for the Red Wings to grab what it looks like could be a really good center if Hughes is not available and they don't end up with number 2 and get Kakko. But I don't think, unless they move down further, unless there was a really good offer on the table to move down that really made this team better, I don't think Bowen Byram is the answer.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I don't really think there's a defenseman out there that's really reaches out to me and said, especially if I get the number 1 pick. I mean, there's not really
no way.
There's absolutely no way I'm trading that for any kind of defenseman. I just don't really think there's any young defenseman out there that I'm saying, oh yes, this is somebody I absolutely need to have on my team who's not worth getting or who's worth giving up a guy like Jack Hughes. It's just there's just not. It's
if you move down, if you move down 1 or 2 spots and you were already at 3 or 4. And someone says, hey, I'll give you another second rounder to move down 1 spot, at that point, if the Red Wings are looking at their draft board and they're like, look, we like what's available at 5 just as much as what's available at 4, then if it's a higher second rounder, if you're picking at basically, if it's like a Joe Veleno type situation where you're basically picking, at the very end of the first or beginning of the second, then I think about that. But not to reach for Bowen Byram. I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, do you know enough about Bowen Byram to make you feel strongly one way or the other about him?
Not necessarily, and I like what you said about the fact that you said his stock has just risen because of the lack of just defensemen that are available. I mean, what the next best defenseman is like Soderstrom from Brynäs, and you got Cam York in there too he's on the USA team.
There's 3 defensemen according to Sportsnet, based on what I'm looking at. There's 3 defensemen ranked in the top 15. Yeah, and Byram is number 1, and the next 2 fall to actually it's not even the top 12, it's top 15. Did I say 15?
Yeah, you said 15.
Okay, so 14 and 15 are both other defensemen, which is Broberg, which I've heard about.
Yeah,
him.
I've heard good things about Broberg.
And Thomas Harley, but I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, it's just, you got to get the best player available, and they shouldn't be reaching for anybody if you're in the top 5.
Exactly.
You pick the best player that's available. And, if you got a good GM that knows how to, actually take value and turn it into something else, then, you don't worry about it. I mean, hey, according to Holland, none of these players are going to play for 3+ years anyway. So
exactly. So, I mean, it's so tough. I mean, the draft lottery. They said it's like April 6th. I think it's like before the NHL playoffs even start is when they do the lottery.
9th, but yeah,
is it the 9th? But
your point
somewhere in that range
is the same. It is earlier, which is nice. So we're gonna find out much earlier, and hopefully they're not gonna do that stupid crap they did last year where they make you wait 2 hours to find out who picks number 1. That was horrible. That was just painful to watch. But I mean, dude, at this rate, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Holland found a way to make Jack Hughes stay in minors after this year.
Right. Yeah.
He is a little guy, kind of. I mean, he needs to put some meat on him. But I mean, it would be great to have Jack Hughes because, it just means that you actually can probably put an end to this Athanasiou at center experiment.
Yeah.
Let him score his goals because Hughes is going to get it to him, or you put Zadina with Hughes. Or you put Zadina. It lets you put Zadina with either Hughes or Larkin is what it does.
Can you imagine Zadina and Hughes in the same line though with the red? Oh my goodness, I just can't even.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great, but the thing is,
beautiful.
If you get an elite, center like that, then it gives them more options, because now you can put Veleno, in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Maybe he's your third line center. I don't know, but the point is that they need an elite center. They need it. I mean, defense, forwards are more. I don't care. I mean, look, I will contend. Having an elite scoring, playmaking center is more important than defense because they touch the puck. They are critical. And I would much rather take my chances on, an elite scoring center than take my chances on a guy that, how good is he really on defense? A Bowen Byram, if I had my decision to make between I don't know, what is it? Kako and Puckholzen are both wingers. So, I mean, if it's between a guy like Cousins, Doc, Zegras, Alex Turcotte, I might be taking any one of those over Bowen Byram.
Yeah, for sure. No, absolutely. So I wanted to jump in a little bit more before we, kind of sign off for this weekend. We go into a little bit of these like in-depth kind of guys and look at, some of the stats we're looking at. So, like you said, we both talked about how we kind of liked more of a center sort of look for the Red Wings there. If we're not getting Jack Hughes, so I wanted to go a little bit. I know we had that conversation a little bit last week, or a couple weeks ago. But the conversations between Dylan Cousins and Kirby Dach. So I have some of their stats pulled up. Obviously, their stats are not reflective of what they'll do at the NHL level, but. So for Dylan Cousins so far in 2018-19, he has 34 goals and 50 assists for 84 points with the Lethbridge Hurricanes in the Canadian League over there and the CHL. So from what I've seen, I mean that's some pretty impressive stats for him. Going forward, Kirby Dach's pretty close with the Saskatoon Blades. He has 25 goals and 48 assists for 73 points. So they're both, obviously both of them would be really good picks for the Red Wings either way. I don't really think it matters where the Red Wings go. I've started to favor Dylan Cousins a little bit more these past couple weeks as I've been reading up on him. But I know you're more of a kind of a Kirby Dach sort of guy. But like I said, I know you kind of both go you go both ways on that. But I think both these either way would be spectacular picks. Being able to see one of these guys, in a Red Wings uniform in the next couple of years would be great. Cousins playing the WHL, is definitely a really good option either way. I think regardless of which way you go, I think center would just be really good for what the Red Wings are looking for. We can go a little bit in depth in Bowen Byram too, but like I said, I'm not really sold on him. I'm really kind of like for some of those later picks, I'm more of a Cousins and Dach kind of guy. I don't get me wrong. I mean, if the Red Wings do fall to 6, Peyton Krebs is more of an opportunity kind of guy right there. And you got a left winger. But like I said, I'm kind of more, if I had to choose between Dach and Krebs, if both of them are there at 6, I'd probably go Kirby Dach. In terms of just need at a center. And Dach has that size over Krebs too. I mean, Dach is 6'4", so, and Cousins has that size as well. He's 6'3", 176. So, in terms of size and just, playmaking ability, and hockey IQ, I really like, the centers over, some of the defensemen there. And I know a lot of people would disagree with me, possibly, I mean, I know there might be some people out there who like Byram and defense and wouldn't mind kind of, risking the defense pick to kind of solidify it. But like like we were talking about, they have a lot of good defensemen in their system, and I'm not necessarily concerned as much on defense. Well, I am concerned on defense. That's not necessarily what I mean at all. But I think there are some holes on offense they definitely need to fill in as well, because the Red Wings are just as bad on offense as they are on defense. So,
yeah, I mean, like we said before, they got holes everywhere, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but I mean, we all know that when you're trying to build a championship team, you have to be strong up the middle and on defense. And it's a higher priority that they find, a center that can make his line mates better than to find another winger. I mean, the exception is a guy like a guy like Zadina. Is Kotkaniemi going to end up being a better player than Zadina? I don't know. I mean, Montreal decided that that's the route they were going to go, and they passed up on Zadina because centers are more important than wingers. But a guy like Zadina has the skill set to make his line mates better.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, that's what I'm most concerned with. And Kirby Dach and Dylan Cousins, I don't know which one of them is better than the other. I mean, they both seem to be, big guys that have a great, elite strength and puck skills, good hands. Doc is a little bit more of a playmaker. Cousins, he's cooled off, at times, but I mean, he's still, he's a great player. So either one of them, I think, would be fine. If we don't get Kakko or Hughes. And like I said, I don't know enough about Podkolzin to know, if it sounds like he's the consensus number 3 guy. I don't know why that is, because I don't know enough about him yet. Is he truly better than one of those other centers? Like, would he make a bigger impact? Look, if Zadina is going to be an elite playmaker and scorer, then maybe it's not as big of a deal,
Yeah.
But based on my experience, you got to have a couple high-end centers, and every team that has won or has consistently been there has that. That's why Tampa's so good. That's why Pittsburgh continues to be good, even when they look like they're not. When you got Sidney Crosby and Malkin, I mean, it's kind of hard to argue against that. You throw 2 lines. That's the thing is, look at Pittsburgh. It's probably a good example. So who heard of Connor Sheary or, God, what's the other guy's name? I forget his name, but they've got a couple guys that, you put them with Sidney Crosby and all of a sudden it's like, well, where did this guy come from? Well, that's what an elite center can do for you.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I don't even think that Larkin has fully reached his potential as an elite center yet. They just put him on center last year. So, his playmaking skills are going to continue to get better.
Yeah.
So technically they don't even really have an elite center yet. He's an elite player.
Yeah, he's an elite player. He just hasn't evolved to that elite center yet. And you know what? He's only 22, so
right.
He's got plenty of room to grow. And he'll obviously be one of the faces of the franchise going forward.
He's your future captain.
Yeah,
he's
your
the best
future
player
captain
on the team, and he makes a difference every single time he goes out there.
Absolutely,
and that's great. This is not about Dylan Larkin as much as it is about the Red Wings organization finding players on that team that can get other players the puck and put them in the best position. And that's the things. If they can get, it's going to be about choosing the right guy. I mean, if they want a center, if they want a top 10 center in this draft, they're going to have multiple opportunities to get it. They're going to have Doc, they're going to have Cousins, they're going to have Turcotte. If they're lucky enough to get Hughes, they're going to have Hughes. Is Peyton Krebs a winger or a center? I've seen both. So they're going to have plenty of opportunities. So, are they going to, they're gonna, obviously they have in the last couple years now, the scouts for the Red Wings have had way more reason to scout the top 10 players in the draft than they ever have. So, they've been, I mean, we all know, we don't know who they're going to go with, but they've got a clear idea of who they want, and they're going to put it on their board, and hopefully they take the best player available on their board. And they don't say, well, maybe we should go get that defenseman now. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think they'll do that. But, I like both what I've heard about Cousins and Doc, but I've also liked what I've been hearing about Zegras too. So, I think we'll probably I'll definitely be able to form a stronger opinion once we get closer, and I think it's going to help obviously in the next couple of weeks when we know where they're going to pick, because then we'll know who really we're going to be focusing on. But so far it looks like the guys that we're going to focus on are the guys that we just talked about. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so and we'll kind of see in the next coming weeks. Like we said, I think you said the lottery was on the 9th or something like that, and I think the Red Wings season ends on the 6th of April, and that they end against the Penguins, if I'm not mistaken. But so we still have we're still a couple weeks away from hearing that, and we'll definitely be sure to cover that in the podcast once we hear when that announcement is, and it'll definitely become a little bit easier, and we'll help you guys kind of follow some of the draft action once we kind of figure out the range of where the Red Wings are picking, because it definitely helps narrow down some of the picks when exactly where the Red Wings are going to be picking. So that'll be interesting to see going forward. It's definitely nice to see that the lottery is a little bit earlier this year, and we'll have to wait and see until the draft comes June. Yeah, I think it's June if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, so it'll be kind of exciting. Even when the season ends, we only we got like 10 games left in the season, but we'll still be bringing you guys a lot of some good content in the podcast, and we'll kind of go over some of the options the Red Wings have in the draft and stuff like that. And we'll go a little bit more in depth in some of these guys later as well once we figure out where the Red Wings are picking. So, but was there anything else you wanted to cover today, or?
Yeah, one other thing. Yeah. So this is kind of a fun thing, since we're kind of in the the dark ages of the Red Wings right now, right? Mm-hmm. So there's been some pretty ridiculous player names in the NHL. So what is a funnier name? Darren Pitlick, or is it Pitlick? I don't know what his first name is. Pitlick or Darren Pupa?
Oh man, that's tough. They got some crazy names going on. I mean, that's just kind of unfortunate. It's where are these guys from, man? I mean,
Darren Pupa played for the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Oh, and boy.
I think he played. I remember when Darren Pupa was like on NHLPA. Like 93. Like, so any of you guys that are like as old as me will remember playing your Sega Genesis NHL games and seeing Darren Pupa as the starting goalie or the backup goalie. But yeah, there's been some other names like Paris Doofus.
Oh boy. Paris Doofus.
Yeah. I mean, like, there's some pretty crazy, like, hockey players have some pretty crazy names. Like, there's some pretty fun, like Hock and Lube. Like, I mean, there's some pretty, like, there's some, if you just go online, you'll see, like, I mean, I just remember some of these from when I was a kid, but like, there's a guy that played for the Chicago Blackhawks in the 40s whose name was Harry Dick.
Oh, that's just how unfortunate is that?
Like, man. Who names their kid that? You know what I mean?
I know, that's just so bad. I mean, like, I don't even know what people were thinking. I mean, why would you do that to your kid, man? Like, that just seems like it's like, oh man.
There's always Grant Clitsome.
Oh my god. We might have to put a little bit of an age restriction in this episode if we keep going.
But we kind of have like a funny one on our team right now. He plays for Grand Rapids, Harry Sateri.
Yeah, Harry Sateri. That one's a weird one. I mean, I never knew how to pronounce his last name because it's got all those, the little.
He says he likes Harry.
He said what?
He said he likes being called Harry.
Really? Huh.
Yeah. But I mean, there's even a guy named Dick Duff.
Yeah, like
That's just like it's dude. I mean, I remember thinking like names like was it Zombo? Rick Zombo used to play for the Red Wings. But like I don't know if you're walking around with a name like Pitlick or Darren Pupa. I mean, those are kind of tough to beat, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and even in the draft this year, you got some like Capo Caco is kind of a crazy name. I mean, you've got some interesting names coming in too.
Crazy Finnish players.
Some of those guys have like, whew, man, like you got some interesting, like Nolan Foote, Kelowna. So you got some weird ones in here, but it's definitely kind of a lighter way to end the podcast today because we were pretty negative in today's podcast for the majority of it.
Yeah, I was just trying, like I don't know, I was trying to get off my soapbox a little bit today, and I'm like. It didn't work until I was just like thinking about, some of these old player names. I'm like, man, there's got to be some other ones that are like equally as bad, like, equally as funny. And I'm like, and sure enough, there's like a whole website on it. So I don't know, like, I don't know, maybe somebody out there can think of like another one that we're not thinking of that's even funnier. But if you do, hit us up and let us know. But I'd also like, if the folks that are listening out there, if you guys feel strongly enough about any particular player other than Hughes or Kako that, you think is worth us spending some time on, maybe what we could do, I don't know, Chase, maybe what we could do is over the next, couple months or so is maybe like do some like prospect spotlights or something and try to
absolutely.
That way we actually can offer a little bit more information on some of these guys than just, the high level that we've done so far.
Yeah, because we've only touched on a couple players. So, I mean, if you guys have any suggestions as people, as prospects you want to see cover, we can go over some of these guys over here and kind of discuss some of the implications they could have with the Red Wings and see if they're an opportunity. And we don't have to just stick in the first round either. We can look at some of the later round guys, some of those late round flyers that, that are always interesting because the Red Wings have a pretty busy second round and the draft coming up too. So there's always possibilities.
Just don't ask about Spencer Knight, the goalie. Not drafting a goalie in the first round.
Yeah, they're not drafting a goalie. It doesn't make any sense. As much as the Red Wings do need a goalie, I mean, obviously they'll probably re-sign Howard. They've got.
Well, they will.
Yeah,
they will. And they'll sign him to another $5 million deal too.
Yeah,
and it'll probably be for 2 years.
But I've been seeing a lot about Philip Larson. I've been seeing a lot about him. As of late, he's been getting a lot of buzz around him in developmental. So
yeah, they got. Yeah, I mean, it's not that they don't have some really good looking prospects.
Yeah.
in the system. It's just that none of them are at even the AHL level yet. And that's
exactly.
And you know how it is. I mean, Carter Hart's pretty young.
Yeah.
Excuse me, but in most cases, you really don't bring up a goalie into the NHL that hasn't spent at least a couple of years in the AHL. It
Absolutely,
just doesn't.
Yeah.
It just really doesn't happen. And best case scenario is going to be that Larson and Petruzzelli, and you got the kid that they just drafted in the second round for Sweden. That Håkan Andersson was pretty high on. Honestly, those three guys are your top three goaltending prospects right now. Don't get it in your head about, Sateri or Caden Fulcher or, those guys being on the Red Wings unless it's an emergency backup situation because that's not why they sign those guys.
Yeah, exactly.
It's those three prospects that I just named. Those are the guys at the top of the list for them. And they got two kids that are in their Petruzzelli's in his second year of college and he's been starting. Funny enough, I think the guy that was starting ahead of him last year was a college free agent this year. I don't know where he went, but at Quinnipiac. So you had Petruzzelli is been playing a lot more games this year and done a lot better. And then I think from what I've seen, the kid that you were just talking about from Sweden, Larson.
Larson
has been, since he's had some groin injury issues. So that's a little concerning, but otherwise he's been dominant pretty much where he's been playing. Those guys are at least, another year of college away from getting to Grand Rapids.
Yeah.
I don't know that they play all 4 years in college. If they do, that probably suggests that either they're not progressing as quickly as they hoped, or University of Denver is supposed to be a really, really good hockey college. So that might be that might be a little bit different than normal. But my point is that you're not going to see either of those two guys suiting up for the Red Wings, for at least a couple years. It's going to take some time. So in the meantime, you have to have a decent goalie back there helping out. I don't care if it's Jimmy Howard, Bernier, or somebody else. You can't stick a kid in there and ruin his confidence with the defense we've got going on right now. You just can't.
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, because you're not going to get an Andrei Vasilevsky or a Carter Hart or a Jordan Binnington straight out of the gates. You guys have to be patient. That's the one thing we have to preach here is patience. That's the number one thing you can always say is obviously with the rebuild and stuff, you just have to be patient with it. And as frustrating as it is to kind of have to wait around and kind of drag through this rebuild, and as much as we can say, oh, bright future for the team, and I know that gets a little bit annoying, but patience is the most important thing. A lot of these kids are really young, and you can't expect them to spring right into the pros. And I'm sure a lot of people are like, oh, why didn't you draft a guy like Vasilevsky over whoever they drafted? I know they kind of whiffed on whoever they. Kyle Quincy,
who's playing in Europe right now, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, man, you can go back and do this hindsight thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not even doing that as far as like you should have took this guy instead of that guy. It's just, and I'll end it here, like end my little tirade on Holland here is just, the reason I want Yzerman to come back, and whether he brings Pat Verbeek with him or whoever else, there's been some talk about how, I don't know, I think it was Elliot Friedman said something about, if Yzerman returns, he could see Yzerman being the president and Verbeek being the GM. Look, at the end of the day, if Yzerman's the one that's making the final call and he's the one look at what he's done to turn around Tampa Bay.
Yeah. Awesome.
So I think a lot of people forget, like, yes, they had Hedman and Stamkos when they got there, very young players, but they didn't have Tyler Johnson, they didn't have Kucherov, they didn't have Vasilevsky, Sergachev, Point, they've brought a lot. That whole organization is a completely different organization now than when he got there.
No, absolutely.
So that's what we're looking for is, do we have the right scouts? Do we have the right guy leading the scouting? Do we have, other than Hackett Anderson, I don't know. I mean, it sure seems like we've made a lot better picks in the last couple of years. And there was quite a lot of bad picks made when Jim Nill was running the deal, but we don't really think about that much because the Red Wings were still winning back then. But there was a lot of picks made when the Red Wings were still winning, and they were this is like what I was talking about at the end of last episode, is there was a whole generation, a whole era of players that didn't do anything that we drafted in that whole period of time in the mid 2000s. That turned out to not be the guys that could take over. So this was a matter of both, not drafting the right guys and re-signing the wrong guys for too much money and trading too many picks when we should have been holding on to them instead of trying to get the 8th spot in the playoffs and get our ass kicked by Tampa. We should have been stockpiling those picks and rebuilding and building up assets. But we didn't. We are where we are. To your point, we've got to be patient, but we've also got to be willing to take some risks and make some moves to move this thing along. Because if we wait too long, if we keep saying pretty much every forward that we don't draft or defenseman that we don't draft in the top 5, it's going to take them 3 years to get here. This thing's going to take forever, and you're gonna run into another situation where you're having to overpay guys that are 27 years old that have been here, that haven't had anybody great to play with, that are putting up 30 goals and really aren't, making anybody else on their line better.
Exactly. No, I completely agree. So in terms of the episode this week, I think we're gonna kind of wrap it up for what we've got. And we'll continue to go. Like I said, we'll continue a lot of the draft talk and stuff like that as the season comes to a close, and we'll bring that to you guys in the next episode after after we kind of see the season wrap up. But like I said, feel free to shoot us any questions over on Twitter. If there's anything you guys want to see, any prospects you want to see us cover coming up, just feel free to hit us up on Twitter. I'm at Chase Sussex on Twitter, and you can follow the podcast at Hockeytown Rundown on Twitter as well. Where can they find you, Jay?
You can find me on Twitter at Warm Chord Music. So it's WARMCHORD Music. That's what I go under on Twitter. So it's probably the best place.
Yeah, so we appreciate you guys tuning in again this week, and we look forward to hopefully having you guys stick around for the episodes coming up. I know that we're going through a little bit of a tough time with the Red Wings, and the season's almost over. But I'm telling you, there will be no shortage of content coming up when the season ends. So stay tuned for that. But for right now, we're going to sign off for this week. So long.
Take care, guys.